Morning once again. So, I told us last time that please, I need everybody attention. I told us the other time that we are through with learning PHP as a language itself. That the next class will be entering PHP MySQL. PHP my what? SQL. Now, in web development, where we apply these two languages as our back-end languages, we take some time to understand their fundamentals. When I say fundamental, that's what their basis. Before relating the two languages on the essence of us learning them. Why are we learning PHP and why are we learning MySQL? It is because we have forms in our website and we have images, we have content that we likely want to process to the back end what? Database. For example, if I ask us to open that project that I asked us to work on some time ago, I want to believe that one of those pages carries form, right? So why we are learning PHP is for us to be able to process the user's inputs to the back end. When user fill the form, how will the information be processed to the back end database? That is the essence of us learning PHP. We are not learning PHP to build standalone apps like Open, like MoneyPoint. We are learning PHP to apply it in web development. So that is why the standards requires that you should understand at least the basis of these two languages before you think of applying it. And in the application is the advanced aspect of it. So when I said I'm done with the PHP, I'm done with the basic aspect of it that we need to know before we can start applying it. So what I'm going to teach us now is introduction to SQL. Remember that we have not done anything related to what? SQL. And we are to learn PHP MySQL. So we have done justice to PHP. Now let's look at introduction to SQL. Then after that, yes. Yes, we are coming to that. Bootstrap should not interrupt what we are doing. It's just the front end for determining your website responsiveness. So I'm still coming to it. I'm planning how I'm going to take care of it. So now, so like I was saying, we want to look at introduction to SQL. And then after a brief introduction to SQL, we will now look at how to prepare our form to PHP standard. That form that you created, PHP cannot work with it. We will have to learn how to prepare the form for PHP what? Processing. So these are the two things I want to achieve today. After a brief introduction to SQL, I will now take us to that particular form that you want PHP to process its data to the back-end database. What are the attributes that we need to, add to it so that PHP will be able to process it? We will look at all that. So let's look at the SQL for like 30 to 40 minutes. The full meaning of SQL is structured query language. Introduction to SQL. I said the full meaning of SQL is what? That's supposed to be writing or snappers. The full meaning of SQL is structured query what? Language. Structured query language. And how does it affect us as web developer? And I hope we all know that a website backend has a storage, right? Where informations are stored. So we have to learn this language. It's a programming language that helps us to create and manage what? Database within our website backend. So if you are a backend or a full stack developer and you don't know how to create database, then you will end up redirecting your form to submit their content to your email. Yes, that option. That is, you now use your email as what? The database instead of you creating official what? Database in the PHP My Admin section. So just to define what SQL is properly, SQL is a programming language used for managing and manipulating data stored in Relational Database Management System, RDBMS. So the Relational Database Management System is talking about tables that have related values or records. As you can see with the diagram, you can see there is a connection between one table and the other, isn't it, from the diagram? So which means that we can have a single database and inside it we have table. So what we are defining as table here, we all did table design in HTML, right? Table has what? Columns and what? Rows. We coded the table now, right? Good. Now, that same table is what we are talking about here. You see, the entire form, the form that you have in your website front end is represented as table at the back end. You need to understand that. So for example, where you must have, let me change from this view so that I can do some illustration for you to understand. For example, you have a form like this. This is your front end element. And this form, you have name. I will just use this simple input form to illustrate it. And then I have maybe state. I have state. Then I'm providing a box. And then probably you have your subword bits button here. Right? Maybe you have your submit button here. Now, you provided users this as a way of collecting what? Information from them. Those information has to be sent to somewhere. And that place that those information will be sent to, there is a language that we use in creating it. And what is the language? What is the language? The SQL. That particular storage where this form. So this is just like the storage. Don't know how we illustrate it now. Let me put it here. Let me put it here. So let's assume that this is the back-end database. Now, this is where you now have your PHP. So that you know the relationship between what? The HTML, which is the front-end content creator, and the what? The PHP, which is the data processing language, and the SQL, which is the data storage what? Language. Now, the PHP is just like the one that we pipe or convey the information from this form. So when the user fill their name, fill their state, and they click on submit, this information comes in here. This is what happened. This one comes in here. Now, inside this database, there are tables. There are tables. So this is why I said every form is represented as what? Table at the back end. Now, the tables are inside the database. So I can have 5 tables inside one what? Database, which means that in my website front end, I can have a contact form submitting to a different table. I can have a purchasing form submitting to another table, and all the tables can be inside what? One database. So which means that this table is going to have how many headers? 3. This table is going to have just 3 headers. One is the constant ID. ID is the one that will define the serial number 1, 2, as the records are dropping. Once the first one drop, the table will generate what? A serial number for it, number 1. So that is why I make it 3. But what is coming from here? There are 2. That is what? The first name, we enter what? Name column. Y state, we enter state. Now see how it works. When somebody fills his name under name field, it comes under what? The name comes in here. When the person fills his state under state field, the record comes in here. That is for the first person. The next time another person visits that website and fill this form again, then it will now label what? Number 2. Then the person's name come under. So at the end of the day, you will now have a whole bunch of data sets collected from the users. Now, the main reason why I have to illustrate it now is for us to know the relationship. Now, the user work is just to type in here. But you as a developer, it is your responsibility to consult PHP to write scripts that once the user click on submit, you are going to attach that PHP script to the button. Now, as soon as they click on the button, an action will be triggered. And that action is at what? Called PHP scripts. And inside that PHP scripts, you have already created different variables that will be holding this information that are coming from the form. And then from the variable, there are also PHP scripts that will collect the data from the variable and send them to what? To the back-end what? Database. That is the logic. So why do we need to learn SQL now? I believe it's clear with this illustration. If you don't learn SQL, if you only learn PHP, you only learn how to process the information, but you will not learn how to create that very place where those data are going into. I don't know if anybody understands it. Okay, so I just brought this so that you will understand the connection between the PHP and the SQL. So with that established, let's go back to the explanation properly. So like I said SQL is a programming language used for managing and manipulating data. Used for managing and what? Manipulating data. Stored in relational database. That table that I drew is the relation. The word relation means table. Once you add that relational, it means the connection of one table record and what? Another table record within the same what? Database. So if you can picture that diagram that I gave us, you understand it. In one database, you can have multiple tables, where each of the table will be representing each form in your front-end website. So each form processes record to what? A table. So if I have a website that have 3 forms, how many tables am I going to create in my database? How many tables? 3 tables. So I can decide to say, okay, I want to have 3 different what? Database, and each of them will receive record from one form. Or I create what? One database, and all the form will submit all their record into 3 different what? Tables in that database. So let's still proceed. So what is SQL? SQL is a standard language for accessing, managing, and modifying data in that same table. So this is another definition. And I hope we are writing down write down your notes. So SQL is a standard language for accessing, managing, and modifying data in relational database. So I want us to look at the keywords there. Accessing, that is what? We can fetch data from it. Through it, information that has been stored can be accessed. Managing means what? Manipulating.
changing things, calling records from a table in a database, altering the words, the headers, making some modification. All of these are what SQL can enable us to do. So every web developer must understand what SQL. Even when you are learning Python, if you want to learn Python to the point where you use GUI, you are still going to work with SQL. But then you work with what? SQLite, which we are also using here. So let's quickly look at some basic concepts. Anybody who understands SQL must understand the meaning of these terms. Number one is database. Like I've been mentioning since, database. So what is the database? A database is a collection of related data. Simple as that. Collection of what? Related data. For example, all the information that are coming from the form, they are what? Related what? Data, isn't it? The person's name, the person's state, they are all related. So where those informations are stored within your website backend is called database. And the language that is used to create that storage is called SQL. And that is what we are learning right now. Another keyword, another basic concept in SQL is tables. So we must understand tables. Tables can be defined as what? A collection of related data within a database. Like that illustration I gave to us, I told us that what? One database can have a what? Multiple tables. Then another key term is what? Columns. We must understand column under table structure. Columns are the field names, the headers. The diagram I drew the other time, there was a place where I mentioned what? ID. I mentioned name, I mentioned states. Those headers, they are called what? Columns. The vertical spaces, they are called columns. So if you understood the table you designed with HTML and CSS, most of these steps, when you were designing, you were taught table row, that's TR, right? TD, is it not? So row, they are the what? The individual entry, that is a record within a table. While queries means requests for specific tasks or action. So anytime in database management system, somebody use the word query, what he or she mean is what? To give a task, to ask the language to do something for you. That is query. So when we are done establishing our table, when we are done connecting our form to the what? To the back end table, we will now look at how to write some, SQL query statement to manipulate and to access data, like we mentioned earlier on. So with this understanding, we will now go into what? How to prepare our form. How to prepare our form. Because every other practical will be done as we work with the form. But for now, I want to believe that we understand what is SQL. The whole of this slide is not for you. This slide is the slide I use in training for data analysis. But the reason why I brought this slide is to explain what I have in the first 3-4 slides. That is what concerns you. Because from this slide, you have been able to know what is SQL. You have also been able to know what the basic word times. Then every other thing we will learn about it, we will learn them alongside with PHP. That is why this aspect is now called PHP MySQL. Not just PHP, neither just what? SQL. We are blending them together. That is how you work with them as a website developer. You don't work with only SQL and isolate what? PHP. You don't work with only PHP and isolate what? SQL. You blend them together. You write the code together. The PHP code and the SQL code should be written together. But when you are writing, you should know the section that is responsible for SQL and the one that is responsible for PHP. So with that, let's quickly go to, right, preparing PHP form. That is the next topic now. Preparing PHP form. Preparing PHP form. So let me create another file here. I will just name it form.html for now, so that I'll be able to access. I will change it later so that I'll be able to access all those HTML elements without, typing them in full. So let me activate the HTML structure. So like I said, we want to create the form, and this very form that we are creating in our next class, we are going to process its input to the back end. So our next class, we will go to that place that you set up that phpMyAdmin that we entered the other time from the browser or from the XAMPP server. We will go there and create database and then write PHP and SQL code to process whatever the users are going to type into the back end. So this is part of the step. So you need to have created the front end form. That is why we said that you should have come up with a project, your front end project, where you have created a form. Now, what we'll have been doing now is just what? To go back to that page and what? Just adjust little things, add these features that PHP work with, and then we'll just go ahead with the processes. But I'm very sure that most of us have not even completed that project. And I'm coming to it very soon. That complete front end that some people submitted the other time. If you have not created your front end project, then start creating one now, because very soon you end up delaying yourself. I can tell you until you finish it for the next 2 weeks before the class will continue.
For like website.
You were given a project. Asking me this question as if you were not in that class. I asked us to create a complete website using HTML, CSS. And when we were learning Java, I said, go and what? Integrate JavaScript app inside. So if you have not executed that project, go and work on it too. But I can just come and tell you that until that project is ready, we will move forward. So start working now. So what I'm saying now is that, this particular form that I want to create now is a form that I want to optimize to PHP standard. Because for PHP to be able to process the record the users are going to impute in that form to the back-end database, there are certain attributes that must be acknowledged. And that is why I don't want to assume that we know it. I will have just said, okay, create a contact form. When you are ready, I come. But I want to create that form with us. So in case you have forgotten how to create form, you will learn it also alone, together with the addition of the PHP attributes. So let me use comments here, like those documents. So I say, this form is PHP form. It's not just HTML form. Because my intention is to use it to attach PHP scripts to it to help me process whatever the user will type in it to the back-end database that we are going to set up in our next class. But today is just for us to understand SQL and how to prepare the form. That is my assignment today. So remember the syntax for declaring form. What is the syntax? You just type what? Form, right? Form, like this. Then I just want to create a simple contact form. Let me add it here. So I'm creating what? Create a simple. We will start from simple to complex. Simple contact form. Simple what? Contact what? Form. All right. Now, you can see that you see this action, you know, all this while you have been leaving it empty, but now you need it. If this form does not carry this action attribute, PHP cannot process anything that the users are going to impute to the back-end database. So for now, I have not created the PHP file. Hello, I have not created the PHP file. So let me quickly create it. So I will come here and look up. I will create the PHP what? File. The PHP file is what? It's going to be process. Process dot what? PHP. Now, which means that what the action here in my form, the action is that page URL, which is what? Process. So what it means is that once the user click on submit in this form, it will call what? This script. So by, let's say in the next class now, we will not write the scripts. What will PHP use to what? To process whatever the user must have what? Imputed. So that will be our focus in the next class. Like I told us, we are learning PHP and MySQL together. This is not just PHP class, neither what? SQL class. This is both of them together. So what I'm doing right now, I am creating the user interface, the front end element, the form. I am presenting a questionnaire. And this questionnaire, I am incorporating PHP script actions that will process whatever they are going to type. Now, this is not all. You still need to specify your method attributes, whether it's post or what? Get. I am going to choose post. When you are processing data to a server that have a password, you use what? Post. But if I am processing to be outputted within the front end, because I can process this for now that I don't have a server, maybe I don't have a backend. I can say, okay, the information here should be outputted in another page. So within the front end, I am seeing WordPress submitting through the form, which is not secure. But if that should be the case, you now use what? Get. So if I were to be you write down PHP what? Method attributes. Number one is what? Get. Number two is what? Post. Post is used for processing sensitive data. The moment you ask yourself if this form is processing sensitive information, then you shouldn't use get. You use what? Post. Why get is used where privacy or security is not a priority. That is when I said what? PHP what? Method attribute, posts. It is a method that is used to process sensitive data to a server. While get, which is the other method, while get is used where security is not a priority. Where security is not a priority. Where what? Security is not what? A priority. So remember, any form that PHP will process its data to the back end, it must have how many attributes as constant? Action attributes and what? Method attributes. If they are not there, PHP will not process it. So remember, I said this PHP standard form. Now, I want to create my to show that this form is a contact form. So at the top here, I will use like H2 just to specify that what this is what contact what form. So that when they are filling it, they know the type of form they are filling. Then I will now start creating my label. I'll create my label. It's a simple, I believe you still remember label, right? Label for the first input I want to collect is what? Full name. Full name. So I can just what? F what? Name. Then what they are going to see is what? Full name. I just want it to be very simple. Now, because I am not wrapping this in div, if you were taught, I don't know, maybe whether your teacher taught you how to display your inline elements, block elements by wrapping them in what? Div. But if you were not taught, then you can use what? Break. That is what? After the label, the input box should come under. But if I want the label to be on the same line with what? The input box, then I would have added what? Break. So the inputs, that is, I want to create what? The box now, where I expect them to type in the what? The value that will be processed to the back end what? Table. And I believe you were also taught what? Input type, right? Depending on the type of value you are collecting from the customer or from the user. So if it is text, that means what? Is character based. Then you must add name attributes. So if PHP does not see this name attribute, that information will not be processed. So the name is what? The name is what you use here. Are you following? The abbreviation you use for what? The 4 attributes. So I'll supply that as my name. That is what? F name. Then I can decide to say, I want to validate it by saying what is required. Once I add that required, do you know what we have just communicated? That if the user does not fill this, this input, the form will not submit. You have validated it. This is HTML level of what? Validation. So I'll go to the next input. So the next input is email. The next input is email. So I'll call what? Label. Now, after this, I need to add break here also. If not, the next one will be on the same line with it. So I'll now come here, label. Label for email. All right. So I'll create a visible content for them, which is email address. Email address. Email address. Then I will need to also add what? Break here. All right. Then after that, I need to create the inputs. Then the input for email, the input for email type, I'm using email so that it will validate the format. So if it does not find that at, it will reject it. That is when you use the what? The input type to the what? Email. Then we must also add name. And the name I'm adding is what? Email. Just like I type it in the label for attributes. So I will also add what? Break here. So if I want it to be required, I will also add what? Require. And then I create another one for phone number, label for phone. Label for phone, and then write it in full, phone. Then put break also, then inputs. Input, the input type, I'm still maintaining text. So I need to also add name. If not, PHP will not process it. Name is what I use here, which is what? Phone. And then I also want to make it what? Compulsory. It's required, it's not fail, the form will not submit. So I want to give them a message section where they can write a comment. But let me put break here also. So the next one is label for message. And then here I will label it what? Message or comment. Then also what? Break it. Then for comment, I believe you were taught you use test area tag. You use test area tag. That's what you use so that you have a kind of multi-line text box for them to write in. Test area, then the name is message. The name is message. And then I can specify the number of column and the number of row. So I can come here and say rows. Rows will determine how many lines you are giving. So I'm giving them 10 lines. Then call. How many column? That will determine the what? The height. So let's say what? 30. Then finally, I add what? The button tag. Button tag. So button tag. So for button, remember that we are not using input, so I have to put type inside so that I can give it what? Submit, so that it will be an action word button. And then that button, you need to also add name, and the name is submit. The name is submit. Then the description is what? Send message. Send message. Send message. So let's view the front end of this form to see what we have developed. So I'm not going to bother myself with the CSS. I believe you can take care of that. You can take care of that. So once we have written this, you will write this. I'll give you another classwork. You are going to create 2 forms, and you are going to style them in the class just to prepare the 2 of them for the database connection in the next class. So you can see this is the form. This is what that test area generated. Why is this height? Because I specify what? 30 lines. Sorry, 10 rows. And then into what? 30 what? Column. So if I try submitting now without filling this, you will get this message. Do you know why we are getting this message? Because of that word require. So now, what I'm going to do, let me still help us a little. Let's do some CSS aspect of it. But ordinarily, my advice is that don't bother. Okay, can you do the CSS by yourself? You should be able to do that now. Eh? You cannot do it. Okay, so your classwork now, right? You are to create this form the way it is like this. Then you create another form. That form should not be contact form. It should be like purchase form. Maybe for like e-commerce sites, the form that somebody will fill when he wants to buy a product. You determine what and what you want to collect from the person before the person can proceed to the add to cart. You understand? Determine, maybe you want to collect the name, you want to collect the state, you want to collect the country, you want to collect the phone number, you want to collect, so at least not less than eight inputs in that form. The first part of the assignment is that you replicate this one, so that the next class, you will be on the same page with me. Because the next class, I will just call out this form, and then I will start teaching us how we can write PHP scripts and SQL code to process all the information to the back end. When the user fill this, and click on send, they will now go to the back end and see whether we will receive the information. So I would advise you not to miss that class, because that is the main class. That is the main class. I can tell you that is the main class. And I will start on time. I will start, if possible, 9:30. So that we can start it and finish it. Then you now go home. That's your form in that your project. The next time you come back after that class, when I fill it and click on submit, and I go to the back end, I should see the record.